All right, Peter Lohmann here at NARPM Nationals. Peter, you guys recently launched Crane. Well, not that recently, right?
1 year ago.
You're already like 1 year of learning, 1 year of success. Let's start first at NARPM Nationals. Feels very much like a community. There feels like a real camaraderie here.
Yeah.
Why another community?
So Wolf and I, when we first envisioned Crane, we weren't really sure what it was going to be, but we knew that there was, or we speculated that there was an interest in a smaller, tighter, more focused community for property management company owners who weren't just starting out. A lot of the content at the NARPM conferences is tailored for folks who are early in their journey, and they're awesome, and I've learned a ton, and I highly endorse NARPM. I love what they do. I participate in a lot of their stuff. But we got to thinking, like, what if there was kind of like a next tier where there's some requirements to get in, it costs a little more, which means we can then tailor the offering and the value for our members to like the next level. So, we played around with a bunch of different random ideas of, who's it for, what's it going to look like, what's the online component look like, what's the offline component look like, and frankly, we just took a gamble, and we're thankful that, there was about 40 people that prepaid for a year on something that didn't exist yet. And we sort of took a lot of feedback from those early members and incorporated it into what it became Crane as it is today.
Tell me about the learnings of it, man. Like, tell me about kind of like what surprised you, what insights have you gotten from the community, what are things like non-obvious things that property managers were like struggling with that you've been able to get insight in?
So I think the most surprising thing for me is that the community aspect of it was much more powerful and much more of a draw than I expected. I thought Crane would end up being more about the sort of exclusive resources that Wolf and I were working really, really hard to put together. We spent many hours making like a custom like exclusive podcast and all these other things that we put into the community. And it turns out, like, of course people like those things, but what they really seem to resonate with is the connections that they're making with with their peers in that private community. I think that's really the key, is that of course, there's a lot of conversations happening on Facebook, and there's a lot of conversations happening in more public or semi-public places, but to have a private area where all the members are vetted, and that there's a policy of discretion, and you'll just get kicked out if you violate that, that lets everyone open up and be a lot more vulnerable, and that's kind of where the magic is when you're not just bragging and talking about how many doors you have, but you're sharing your struggles, maybe your personal struggles, you're sharing stuff that you tried that didn't work at all, or even being able to talk freely about vendors, quite frankly, is something that you can't really do on the Facebook group. So that was a surprise for me. That was probably a little egotistical, that I thought it would be all about like our exclusive content, and it makes sense that it's really more about the connections.
I can tell you, as a guy that's been obsessed with community and how it works for 10 plus years now, what you're experiencing is absolutely the arc of it, right? Like, I think people walk in thinking that it's the stage that's the most valuable thing, and then they realize that it's not really like what you're doing from the stage. It's essentially how you're allowing people to share in the stage and to connect with each other and exchange value with each other. So it's a very natural arc. And another thing that I think you're noticing is, and you kind of said it, but without these words, it's different inside of a gated community where people are vetted and there's a level of understanding and trust. What it enables is vulnerability. And really, vulnerability is, in my experience, vulnerability and shared value are the two ways that you connect with people. So you're doing that, right? Like, you're leading the charge with the value, you're creating the safe space for vulnerability, and then that allows other people to share in the value with each other, which is the thing, people come for. I want to know Peter and I want to know Wolf, but they stay for, oh my God, these are all the friends that I never knew I had, and these are the people that can talk me off the ledge whenever I need it, because property management is a tough game.
There's something really special about being around people who you feel get you in a very deep way. And not for nothing, there is something unique about owning a property management company, and I'm sure that there's a lot of commonalities with owning any small business. But when you're around another person who also owns a property management business and knows everything that goes with that, not just the day-to-day, the way your employees do, but the stuff that comes home with you at night, when you realize that someone else understands you at that fundamental level, it's a very unique experience that you don't get just from, it's very different than the experience you get of just showing up to an ARPM conference and watching a talk.
Out of all places, at Funnel Hacking Live, I heard Dean Graziosi say from stage that people don't bond with, connect with, do business with, are attracted to people that they feel they understand. They bond with, connect with, do business with people they feel understand them. So, like creating that like receptacle where that you're like enabling that stuff, man, I'm not surprised it's working. So that's insights into like the magic of the community. What did you have you learned anything new, non-obvious, into the life of the property manager? Have there been any realizations from this like interaction at scale that while you've had an audience before, you now have this more like, it's kind of like more proximity, right?
Yeah.
Any kind of like non-obvious things kind of bubble up within this?
I think what was not obvious to me is that most property management business owners don't have a sort of peer network. I sort of assume that people get to know other property management business owners either through conferences or through other maybe online events. And so I assumed like, oh yeah, everyone already has like their little group chat they can text when something goes down. But I think possibly most people do not. And so when they realize that there is another group of people like them, that's like news to them. Or not that it's news to them, but like they didn't know how to plug into that. And so that was a surprise to me. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, thinking back to when I was newer in the business. So I'm an extrovert. So I spend a lot of time out, in the halls and stuff. And so I sort of naturally build up that connected community early on. But if that's not natural for you, or if you just have other priorities, you don't end up doing that. And you can be in business for many years and not have that network. And so the other thing that was a surprise to me is that many, many, many business owners are introverts, like way more than I would have guessed. And so helping those people find their people, like they love you forever if you connect them with other people who get them in that way.
Man, that I bond with this big time, right? Because for me, the majority of value that I have created to afford myself the opportunities that I now get to have don't come from having a business and then realizing that as an extrovert I can help, but it's come into like leaning into this idea that this is a core thing. You walk into a room full of people, everyone's biggest fear is to feel alone in a room full of people. And I have found so much value in finding that one person that's like walking around looking like they're looking for someone, but you've seen them walk around 3 times and they're really just alone, or they just don't want to be checking their phone. Walking up to that person and be like, hey man, what's going on? What brought you here? And then introducing them to a couple people and how that scales. I got goosebumps talking about it, right? But like it's something I really, really believe in. And it's really curious to me. First of all, you're such a laid back guy and you have such like a mellow energy that you're a sneaky extrovert. Right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because a few people this week have said like I didn't realize you were so outgoing. Like it surprised them.
Yeah, that's cool. So, and then the other thing is just this idea that like what's most normal to us is most extraordinary to most people, right? Like, so I just find that that's interesting.